Hi Laila, it's Miss Becca, and I'm going to read to you today from Chapter 2 of Gooney Green, but I'm going to read it from an airplane because I'm flying back to Indiana. I thought that'd be kind of fun and wacky and unique, and I might not be on an airplane for a while, so I wanted to show you real quick. Out here is the wing of the plane, in the clouds, in the sunshine. Now I'm going to shut the window so it's not too bright. Chapter 2, Gooney Green by Lowry. Gooney adjusted her pink ballet tattoo she was wearing over a pair of green stretchy pants. Her t-shirt was decorated with polka dots. Her red hair was pulled into 2 pigtails and was held there with blue scrunchies. She pulled carefully on one of her pigtails, rearranging it neatly because the scrunchie was starting to come loose. She felt her earlobes, which were small and pink and empty. I should have worn the dangly diamond earrings that I got from the prince, she told the class. Maybe I'll wear them next week. Diamond earrings? Prince? Mrs. Pigeon asked. Well, actually, the prince didn't give me the earrings. I got them at the palace, Gooney explained. Why were you at the palace? Well, first I was in jail, and then Gooney interrupted herself. It's a really long story. She reached down and she tidied her clothes. She tidied her socks. May I come up to the front of the room? To begin, she asked the teacher after she'd adjusted her clothing. I like to be absolutely the center of attention. Miss Pigeon nodded, stepped aside so that there was room for Gooney to stand in front of the class. You might as well sit down, Miss Pigeon, Gooney said politely. Take a load off your feet. Miss Pigeon sat down in the chair beside her cluttered desk. She looked at the clock on the wall. We have 15 minutes until arithmetic, she said. Do you know what arithmetic is, Laila? It's math class where you deal with numbers and counting and adding and subtracting things. Class, Gooney said. You heard Miss Pigeon. We have just 15 minutes. There are many Gooney stories that I might tell you, but I have time for only one story today. Who has a suggestion for a story? Ben's hand shot up. Tell about how you came from China, he said. Why are you named Gooney Chelsea was wiggling and wiggling in her seat. The palace, she said. Tell about the jail and the palace and the diamond earrings. Other hands were waving in the air, but Gooney motioned for those children to put their hands down. She looked around the room thinking. This is the title of the story, she said at last. How Gooney got her name. Just like how the leopard got its spots, Barry Tuckerman said in a loud whisper. Barry, please pay attention, Gooney said. I like to have absolutely all eyes on me. Then the class was silent, and all eyes except those of Felicia Ann, who always looked at the floor, were on her. So she began. How Gooney got her name, by Gooney Green. Once upon a time, 8 years ago, a man and a woman named Mr. and Mrs. Green, that's Green, spelled with an E on the end, discovered that they were expecting a baby girl. The man's name was Gordon Green. His wife was Barbara Green. They decided to name their baby girl with their initials, G for Gordon and B for Barbara. They thought of many different names. Gail Beth, said Mrs. Green. She liked short names. Gwendolyn Blendolyn, said Mr. Green. He liked long names. They discussed, and they never argued or fought, but they had many discussions. Once, in the middle of the night, Mrs. Green woke up. She had had a dream about a name. She nudged Mr. Green until he woke up a little bit, and then she said, Georgina, Bettina. No, he said, and he went back to sleep. One night, Mr. Green woke up. He nudged his wife and told her that he had a dream. Gazpacho banana, he said. That was a nightmare you had, his wife said. He agreed, and they both went back to sleep. Finally, because they could not make up their mind about a name, they decided that they would wait until the baby girl was born, and then they would look at the baby, and somehow they would know that her name should be Grace Bridget or Gloria Bonnie or some other name. So they waited, and they waited for the baby's birth. It takes months and months, as you know, for a baby to be born. Gooney Bird paused in her story. She could see that many of the children wanted to wave their hands in the air and say things. Class, she said, do you have any comments so far? Any questions? We have 9 minutes left, Miss Pigeon reminded them, before arithmetic. Kiko asked in a small voice. Did he really say gazpacho banana? Yes, he did, Gooney Bird said. I tell only absolutely true stories. Barry Tuckerman stood up beside his desk. I was named a B name for my grandfather, he said. My grandfather's name was Benjamin. That's my name, Benjamin called out from across the room. My grandfather was in college when my grandmother went to jail, Barry added, or he would have gone with her. Tricia raised her hand. My cat's name is Fluffernutter, she said. 4 more minutes, Miss Pigeon announced. Let Gooney Bird get back to her story so that we can hear the ending. Did you notice, class, she added, how Gooney Bird uses characters and dialogue? And her story is full of surprises. It's a cliffhanger, isn't it? What a good storyteller Gooney Bird is. Laila, do you know what characters mean? Those are the people that are part of the story. And dialogue is when people are talking, when the story is saying what people are saying to one another. Ready? Gooney Bird asked. Ready, shouted the class, all but Felicia Ann, who never, ever shouted. Okay, here comes the ending. Finally, one spring morning, the baby girl was born. She weighed 6 pounds and 14 ounces, and she had red hair. Look, said the mother. She wiggles her head around, looking for food when she's hungry. Isn't that cute? It reminds me of something, but I kind of forgot what. Her father peered down at the new baby in his wife's arms. He smiled. She has very big feet. Isn't that cute? It reminds me of something, but I forget what. Mr. and Mrs. Green looked at their sweet baby. They thought and they thought. It's coming back to me, Mr. Green said at last. Do you remember when we went on that bird watching trip to various islands in the South Pacific Ocean? We saw all kinds of marine birds. That's it, his wife said. She looks very much like one of those birds. But which one? Let's get our photograph album out from the trip, Mr. Green said. Together, they turned the pages of the album. Double-crested cormorant, Mrs. Green said. They looked down at the baby. No, she didn't look like a double-crested cormorant. Redneck grebo, Mr. Green suggested. They looked at the baby again. She does not have a red neck, Mr. Green said. Oh, she does have a red neck, Mr. Green said. She does not, Mrs. Green said. It's pink. They turned the pages some more, and suddenly they both said, oh. Very carefully, they looked at the photograph, and then very carefully, they looked at Gooney Bird Green, looked at the baby. Big feet, Mr. Green said, just like our baby. A head that bobs around, Mrs. Green said, just like our baby. That's the one, they agreed. They read the label under the photograph, the Liaison Albatross. The label said, I don't think Liaison Albatross Green is a very pretty name for a baby girl, Mrs. Green said sadly. It sounds a little bit too scientific. I agree, Mr. Green said, but look at the small print. Together, Mr. and Mrs. Green read the words in the small print underneath the photo, often called Gooney Bird. Gooney Bird Green, the class shouted. I like the sound of it, Mr. and Mrs. Green said, and it has a G and it has a B. It does indeed, said Mr. Green, so they decided to name their new baby girl Gooney Bird Green. Then everyone, including the doctor, a midwife, a cleaning lady, hugged and kissed and did a Viennese waltz together. The end. What a lovely story, Miss Pigeon said, and it gives us a chance to do some science research. We will look up Liaison Albatross in the encyclopedia. Thank you, Gooney Bird. You may take your seat now, and we'll turn to our arithmetic. Wade. Beanie's hand was waving in the air. Yes, Beanie, Miss Pigeon asked. What is wrong? I want to hear about the diamond earrings and the palace. That is a different story, Gooney Bird said. She was walking back to her desk. Tell it, the children called. Barry Tuckerman jumped up and stood beside his desk. I want to hear how Gooney Bird came from China, he said. I came on a flying carpet, Gooney Bird said. But that's a different story, too. She adjusted her pink tutu, and she sat down. Tell it, the children called. Miss Pigeon laughed. I'm sure Gooney Bird was just joking about the prince and the palace and the golden diamond earrings and the flying carpet, too, she said. Gooney Bird already opened her arithmetic book, and she looked up in surprise. No, she said, I wasn't joking at all. I only tell absolutely true stories. Well, said Miss Pigeon, will you tell us another one tomorrow? Of course, Gooney Bird said. The end of chapter 2.